right. So, anybody in here ever dated before? Huh? Yeah, come on. No one wants to admit it. Yeah, we date, right? Maybe it's been a while, but we've dated. Huh? We've been dating for 57 years. Wow, that's a long time. That's longer than I've been alive. Uh, yeah, we date. Dating is part of our, American experience. It's kind of, weird, maybe a little bit, but it is what it is, right? And in high school, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my dating life because I'm sure everybody's dying to know. So when I was in high school, I did a little bit of dating, but I didn't necessarily, date a lot of people. There were a few ladies that I dated, and it was good and had some fun times. And one particular gal that I had actually gotten to know her early when I was a kid, like 10 years old. She went to a different church, but occasionally our churches would do activities together, and so I had seen her a couple of times, at different activities, and I really liked this gal, and my eyes kind of were on her, even at 10, right? I was like, oh man, I love this gal, she's awesome, right? But it just, dating, it's kind of hard to, long distance dating. I'm in this elementary, she's, in the other elementary across town. It just never worked, right? So anyway, I never dated her until high school, and we both went to the same high school, and I run into this gal again, and I'm like, oh, there she is, this wonderful woman that I've been looking towards, for years, and just thought about, and just thought, oh, it's going to be so great. So we did date. It lasted about a year and a half, and it was done, and it wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, and all that. But anyway, so we dated, right? But the interesting thing about dating is that it kind of always starts out with that initial excitement, right? You start, kind of getting to know the person, and you just think they're so pretty, you're so handsome, and you're all excited, and you just love everything they do, right? I mean, it's like even, the way they, comb their hair, or even the way it's maybe all, messed up, you love that, and you love all the little things, that make them, the unique pieces, the way they, like to drive with one hand, or something, whatever, all those little things, you just kind of, you love them, right? But then after a while, maybe you start to kind of, those little things start to annoy you, right? It's like, I had a girlfriend once who ate carrots like all the time, like literally her skin was orange because she ate so many carrots, and literally, I mean, that's serious. I mean, look it up. It happens, right? But anyway, she ate carrots all the time, and when I first started dating her, she was kind of cool, and I'd eat carrots too. And then after a while, I was like, why? I really don't like carrots anymore. Why are we eating carrots all the time, right? Or she would run all the time, and I didn't mind running. I was in track for a year in high school, and so I could run all right with her. But it's like, do we have to run all the time? Maybe just, I don't know, just sit around and kind of be lazy? I don't know, Anyway, so as after the relationship progresses, you eventually get to maybe a point where you're like, I don't really think that this is fun anymore, right? Because dating's for fun, right? And if it gets not fun, then you probably should break up, right? And so then, it gets to break up, and how do we break up, right? There's usually a few ways we can do this. One, you got the assertive ones that just come in, and they're just gonna lay it out there. Just on, what? I don't like you anymore. We're done. See ya. I mean, just like harsh, to the point. Assertive. We're finishing this thing right now. Why continue, right? And then you have the ones that maybe are a little, softer approach. They're assertive still, but they come in. It's not you. It's me. It'll be okay. I've changed. I'm sorry, right? And this kind of thing, right? And so you let them down kind of easy. And then the worst kind are the ones that they're not assertive at all. And they don't have the guts to actually step in there and say, you know what, we should break up. So they start to pick on all the little things to annoy their boyfriend or girlfriend, hoping that eventually they'll get so annoyed that they'll just break up with you, right? And say, hey, I'm out of it, that kind of thing. So anyway, so we have dating, right? And this is this crazy relationships that we go through. We start out, all this amazing excitement, and then it eventually becomes, this annoyance and frustration. So how do we find this truth related in 1 Peter, right? How do we draw from, in this illustration, how do we draw this illustration out of what we're going to look at in 1 Peter today? Well, it basically is this illustration is also an illustration of how we sometimes view church. That we sometimes kind of are just dating church. You know, that we don't really commit to the church. And oftentimes you first become a Christian, you know, you can get involved in the church, and at the beginning you're excited about it. It's kind of all cool, you know, all these great Christians, you know, and people around, and the pastor is like, oh, the pastor, he's so holy. It's, you know, this kind of thing. And then after a while, right, you kind of begin to understand maybe some of the stuff going on behind the scenes, and you realize, oh my gosh, you know, the pastor, he's not so holy, and I mean, he's a Seahawks fan, and, you know, this kind of thing, and I don't know if I can, you know, relate that to, you know, I just can't, right? And so you start to get kind of a little frustrated maybe with the church. And then what we end up doing is we end up breaking up with the church. And we can do it sometimes assertively and actually just walk in and say, hey, I'm leaving and this is why. But other times we just actually start trying to destroy things, you know, trying to just pick on the church and be mean and evil to the church in order to get the church maybe to break up with us, right? And then we go on to the next church and we try again maybe. But Peter, in this passage that we're going to look at today, is calling us to love one another. He's calling us to this family relationship that we have. And he's saying, you know what? We need to commit to this. And the reason we need to commit to it is because this family is an eternal family. And matter of fact, there's some things that we need to avoid. We need to get away from our selfishness. Quit being evil to the church and actually, you know, get rid of some of that selfish and evil practices that we do. And finally, focus our eyes on Jesus. All right. That's where we're going. 1 Peter, let's go ahead and read chapter 1, verse 22 through chapter 2, verse 3. Now that you have purified yourself by obeying the truth, so that you have sincere love for each other, love one another deeply from the heart. For you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and enduring word of God. For all people are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of the Lord endures forever. And this is the word that was preached to you. Therefore rid yourselves of all malice and deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander of every kind. Like newborn babies, crave pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. All right, to start off with, Peter jumps into this, just lays it out there, that we would love each other. And it's interesting in this chapter, or this verse 22, because the word love shows up twice, if you notice that in the verse. And as probably many of you know, in the Greek, which is what Peter wrote this book in, there's actually 4 different words for love. But in the English, there's only one word for love. All right? So when Peter is writing this verse, he uses 2 different words for love. The first one is brotherly love. He says, I understand that when you become a Christian, that you would step into this relationship with the church as a brotherly love, in brotherly love, that you would love each other as family. He's saying that when we become a Christian, we don't just become this, Christian and me thing where it's just Jesus and me, and that's the only thing I have to worry about. Becoming a Christian means that you are in a new family. And that as you step into that family, as you cross that line from non-Christian to Christian, you are entering into this family relationship, and we are to love each other as family. The brotherly love is this idea that, we with family, we can't, choose our family, right? It's like when you get, born into a family physically, this is your family. You don't have any choice over who your mom and dad is and who your brother or sister is, right? This is your family. Yet we also don't ever really give up that relationship. Now, we may not interact with them on a regular basis anymore. Maybe that's gotten painful, or maybe they've passed away, or whatever it may be. But they will always be family, right? And we will always love them in that sense, that they're family. You know, that you can't get rid of family. They're once family, always family kind of mindset. Well, this is exactly what Peter is doing here. He's saying, let's take that perspective, that idea of this family love, and understand that when you are born again, you are born into a spiritual family. And so thus, we need to love each other as a family. Just recognize that, you know what, this is it. This is our family, and this is who we are kind of stuck with. You know, you can't choose who's going to be here anymore. You don't get to make that happen or make somebody leave. This is it. This is the family, and this will always be our family. He also mentions that it's a sincere love. So the brotherly love, the family love is sincere. In other words, we are purposefully engaging in it. We're not just kind of playing this game. And we can do this as Christians, especially in America, right? We kind of step into a church for a little while and go, hey, I really kind of like this church, but not really engaged. You know, we just kind of, from the peripheral, we just kind of, I'm just attending, right? I'm not really a member of the church, or I'm not really engaged in this church. And so Peter says, no, don't do that with the church. This is your family. You need to engage in it. Step in. Be a part of what's going on. Play your role. Encourage one another. Be encouraged by others, right? This is a sincere thing. This isn't just kind of, we're not playing games here, is what he's saying. But he also gives us another love. He says that we also need to love unconditionally. He calls us to love like God loves us. That's the second love that he uses. It's an agape, right? It's this idea that this is how God loves us. And now Peter is calling us to love others, to love the family of God that way. That we would have a unconditional love for one another. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 and 5 kind of do a good job of describing this kind of love. It says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. We see that this unconditional love is not dependent on others. It's not dependent on the subject of our love doing stuff for us or doing things that we like or dislike. It doesn't matter. This kind of love is unconditional. It doesn't matter what they do. It's also completely unselfish. It's not about what I can get from this relationship. See, in a brotherly love context, there's a sense that we would get something from that family member, right? That we love family and they love us in return. There's a reciprocal relationship there, a reciprocal love. But with agape love, with this God-type love, with this unconditional love, it's totally unselfish. It's not about what I can get out of the relationship. That the love is totally for the object of the love, not for myself. And I expect nothing from the object for myself. That I would simply love them because they're lovable, because I've chosen to, because they are worthy of love, not because of what they've done worthy of love, but because of what God has done, and God created them, right? So, it's a sacrificial love. It's an enduring love, and it's a forgiving love. True loving fellowship is experienced when we commit to each other. When we daily choose to sacrifice for each other, endure with each other, and forgive each other. So, Peter has set this up that we have this family of God that we are to engage in sincerely, right? In brotherly love and in unconditional love. But then the question needs to be asked, why should we do this? Why would we want to do this? Why should we engage in this love relationship? And he basically says we should do this because, well, basically kind of two things. One, life is short, and two, this family that we're engaged in is eternal. So, life is short part. You know, we can get so focused as human beings on the temporal world around us. The physical world around us, the relationships that we have with, all of the people and all of the things and all of creation in this world. We can get focused on the benefits that this world has to offer, the blessings, right? And there's plenty, right? I mean, even just a beautiful day like this, right? We can really get excited about that, and we can get focused on that in itself, and love that, and begin to make it look like this is what heaven is sitting out and enjoying this sunny day. And so we get focused on that, or we can get focused on our own pleasure and the things in this world that kind of offer pleasure, or our own status, and that we would seek to get bigger and better, jobs and make more money and have more materialistic, goods and these kind of things. And so we can focus on all of those things, but Peter says life is short. The things that we do, the things that we create, the things that we build, the things that we focus on in this world are going to be destroyed. They're going to fade away. They are perishable. Yet, there is something that's imperishable. And that imperishable piece is the family of God. This family is going to last for all eternity. Why should we love each other? We should love each other because here's the reality. We're going to be together for eternity. Work out your differences. You'll figure it out, right? It's not going to go away once you're going to be with them forever. Sometimes we get this mindset that, when I get to heaven, that Christian that really annoys me, I won't have to be around because there'll be a lot of other Christians I can hang out with, right? No, we need to give up on that thought. We are all going to be there. We are all going to be one. And we need to learn, even now, how to love one another. And the reality is this, that we have to choose to invest in what is eternal instead of what is temporal. How much time do we spend trying to get material stuff, or develop friendships in this world, or create some amazing job or business or whatever, all these things that we spend so much effort on. And I'm not saying those aren't necessarily worthy of our time, but is that all we're hoping for, right? That we would instead invest in this body of believers, that we would invest in the relationships that are here. That is, I think, what is going to be lasting, right? That makes sense. I mean, just from a business mindset, invest in the temporary, or invest in the eternal, right? What's a better investment? Something that's going to be destroyed in a few years, or something that's going to last forever, right? I want to invest in what lasts forever. And that's what Peter is saying here. Our lives are short. This world is going to be destroyed. So don't get caught up in all that it has to offer. Don't think that that's more important. And a matter of fact, here's the deal. Don't think your life is so important. Right? We can get really overly sensitive to offenses. And so someone, as we get to know each other in the church, we get to be friends, and then somebody says something, and we can get really sensitive, and it's simply because our focus is on this temporal world. If we can get our mind on the eternal, then all of a sudden, maybe we're not going to be as offended so much. And we recognize, yeah, that is offensive, but let's go talk about it. Let's work this out. Let's figure this out, because we're going to be together for eternity. We are motivated to invest. I'm going to use the passage first. James 4:14 says, "Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." Again, this is a passage that just talks about, the temporal nature of our life. It's just here and gone. And yet we tend to focus everything on this life right here, instead of thinking about, wait, maybe we should invest in the eternal life. All right, we are motivated to invest in loving fellowship by the eternal truth that we are eternal beings in an eternal family with an eternal Father. We are motivated to invest in loving fellowship by the eternal truth that we are eternal beings in an eternal family with an eternal Father. All right. Next, Peter says, all right, we got to deal with some common sins that destroy relationships. There's some things that, if this relationship is going to last, we need to get rid of some stuff out of our life. Stuff that maybe in this world, in the relationships of this world, are okay, right? And in the corporate world, in order to climb that corporate ladder, you might have to do some of these things in order to get there, right? But, but Peter's saying here, no, we need to get rid of some of these things that we do. Some of this evil that seems to be a part of our lives that destroys relationship. And so he gives us this list, and the first one he gives is malice, and this is kind of just a catch-all for all the other ones that, all of them kind of fit into this idea of malice, because malice is basically evil actions, right? That we would be seeking to destroy others, that we desire to harm others, that we desire to tear them down and to break them apart and to hurt them in some way. That is malice. And malice is actually the opposite of love, right? I mean, if we love somebody, we're not going to do evil things to them, right? The idea that love is an action more than just a feeling, right? And so malice is the opposite of love. It's doing evil. It's hurting somebody. It's offending them on purpose. It's beating them up whenever we can, just with our words or with our thoughts or whatever, in whatever way we can do to hurt them. And this is something that we need to avoid. It should not be part of our conversation, in our minds as Christians. That we would not be malicious towards one another in the church. Yet we see it too often. Next, he gives us 4 other words, and these 4 words are all based in selfishness. And I've actually got short little definitions for each one that you can write down, and it won't be hard for you to write down because they're only just a few words long. But just to help to clarify kind of what these 4 selfish, evil acts that destroy relationships are. First of all, there's deceit. And deceit equals basically this lying for personal gain. It's not lying just for lying's sake, right? It's lying for personal gain. We're seeking to deceive other people into, maybe giving us something we don't deserve, or looking at us in a way that we don't deserve, or whatever, even to hurt other people for the purpose so that we can gain from that, right? That we would be deceitful to others. So deceit equals lying for personal gain. Hypocrisy is the second one, and that's simply seeking undeserved honor. Seeking undeserved honor. The idea that, we want people to look at us in a better light than we actually deserve. That people would see us as more pious than we actually are. That, I've got this, on Sunday mornings, this perspective that I'm going to portray, right? That, I've got my extra big Bible, and I spend a lot of time closing my eyes. I'm not really praying, but my eyes are closed, and this kind of thing. We're trying to create in the church this idea that I am something more than I am, right? So that's hypocrisy. Next is envy. Envy is hating the success of others. Hating the success of others. We look at somebody else in the church who's having success or is getting credit for something or whatever it may be, and we hate that they're being successful. We hate that their ministry is doing better than our ministry. We hate that they get more credit than we get. We hate that it seems like God answers their prayers but not ours. We hate success of others. So envy is not just this jealousy thing, but it's actually a hating. Slander is seeking to destroy the honor of others. Again, we see someone who's getting this honor, and so we're like, they don't deserve that. It's not fair that they get that. I mean, what about me? No one ever looked at me, and so we begin to slander, and behind the scenes begin to tell lies about who this person is and what they've done to try to tear them down. So these are the things that we should not have as a part of our church. Should not be something that we as Christians engage in. And the amazing thing is that we take it these, especially these 4, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander. If you take those and you put them next to the verse we just read, and we'll read again, 1 Corinthians 13, 4-5, about love, it's amazing how you can see this parallel opposite. They're total opposites of each other. So let me read it again. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. So Peter has laid out for us this love that we need to have, and then he says, here's some evil that we need to get rid of. If we're going to really love each other well, then let me be clear, these things cannot be part of your relationship in the church. We must strive to rid ourselves of evil thoughts and behaviors which seek to destroy our relationship with each other. We must strive to rid ourselves of evil thoughts and behaviors which seek to destroy our relationship with each other. Finally, the question has to be asked, so how do we maintain this love for each other? I mean, where do we get this love for each other? I mean, it's not easy to love each other. I mean, we're not God, right? Agape love may be easy for God, but we're not God, right? And it's not easy for us. It's a challenge. How do we resist the temptations that come to do, malicious things to those in the church, right? How do we really commit to the church? How are we going to be able to do this? And Peter lays it out pretty clear for us. He says the way for us to be able to love each other and love each other well and consistently, we just need to focus on God. That we would focus on the eternal one so that we can get our eyes on those things that are eternal and so that we can love those in the eternal family of God. The better we know God, the better we will be able to love each other. It follows that as we get to know God, we will get to know and love each other better. We have to get our eyes on the eternal. And in order to get our eyes on the eternal, we have to spend time with the eternal one. And we do this through spiritual disciplines, right? I mean, there's tons of spiritual disciplines that we can practice as Christians. Prayer, Bible reading, fasting, solitude, worship. I mean, there's a whole bunch, a big list of them, right? I mean, all these things we can do. But the reality of all of those spiritual disciplines is this. All of those spiritual disciplines get our eyes on the eternal. That's the purpose. We have to get our eyes off of this temporal world and get our eyes on the eternal. That would be our focus. Spiritual disciplines draw us into that focus. It's like prayer, in Matthew. Jesus says when you pray, go into your closet so that no one can see you. Part of the reason that Jesus calls us into the closet is because when you get into a closet, it's a dark space, which means that we can't see, which is a good thing because with our physical eyes, we tend to think what is real is only what we can see. But when we go in the closet and close the door and it's dark and we close our eyes, all of a sudden we can come in touch with something that we can't see but is more real than what we can see, and that's the eternal world. And so these spiritual disciplines are there to help us to get our mind on eternal things instead of on temporal things. And so we need to learn to practice them and so that we can deepen that relationship we have with God. What Peter tells us we need to do is we actually need to begin to crave truth. We would crave the truth. And so the question is, how do we crave the truth? I'll use an illustration from my own personal life. Perhaps you can relate to this as well, but coffee. I love coffee, right? Don't we all, right? I mean, come on. Yeah, everybody loves coffee, right? Okay, well, at least one. Okay, good. Yeah, coffee's a great drink, okay? But coffee for me was not, I didn't always crave coffee. I believe I crave coffee now. Right this second, actually. Can I? No, never mind. But I crave coffee, right? But I didn't always crave coffee. I started drinking coffee when I was in my 20s, early 20s. And it started because of a need. I started working graveyards, right? And, working, staying up all night, and then, having kids and staying up during the day and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't getting a lot of sleep. And I realized that coffee has this amazing substance in it caffeine, right? And so if I drank coffee, I could stay up better, right? And so it was out of a need that I first started to drink coffee, and I really didn't like coffee, but I liked what it did for me, right? And so I would actually put a lot of sugar in it when I first started drinking it because it's like, this is so bitter, why do people drink this, right? And then I would drink it, but I would drink it because I had a need to drink it, because I needed to stay awake, and caffeine was the way to go, right? And so coffee was the caffeine that I wanted, right? But after a while, I began to actually appreciate the coffee a little bit more, and I started putting less and less sugar in it, and I realized, oh my, this is actually good tasting coffee. I like this. And then I got a little more picky about, what kind of coffee I'd drink, and, I'm not going to drink that bad church coffee, that's for sure, so I got, real coffee, and I started drinking, that, on a more regular basis, and then all of a sudden I realized that, it's not just becoming a habit, but it was becoming a craving. That, like I'd get up in the morning and first thing I'd think about is coffee. I want coffee, right? And if I didn't have coffee for whatever reason, like the longer I went during the day, the more I was craving coffee. I need coffee. Where's coffee? Give me some coffee. Somebody give me coffee, right? I just had to have it, and that's kind of the way I am today, right, honey? Exactly. So this is the same thing that Peter is calling us to, that we would develop a craving for God. And the thing is, it starts the same way. It starts out as a need, right? When we first come to Christ, it's a recognition that we need him. Right? When we first pray the prayer, when we first say, Christ, you're my Jesus, you're my Lord, that it's because of a need, right? We recognize the need. But sometimes that's as far as we ever go. But if we keep working at it and keep recognizing our need day to day and keep feeding ourselves and spending time with the Lord, after a while, we'll begin to appreciate it more and more, and reading the Bible won't be so dry and hard to read through. We'll actually begin to get something out of it, and we won't need it to be dumbed down so much for us anymore. Now we can really start to dig in a little bit deeper and start buying commentaries and going, oh, what does this really say? And then after a while, it just kind of becomes a habit. We kind of stop thinking about it. We just get up in the morning and we grab the Bible and we read some, and then we spend some time in prayer, and then after a while, we really begin to crave God. And we want to spend time with him. But it's a process. It's something that develops over years, similar to the craving that Sean Brackett has for milk. Right, Sean? Yeah, he shot a little short film to kind of let us know and see a little picture into his life and his craving for milk.
Gotta get some pure milk. I need pure milk. Pure milk. I need pure milk. Pure milk. I need pure milk. Pure milk.
Whoop. Oh, hi, dear. Yeah, I'm just about to close up. I'm getting ready to lock up. I'm locking up right now. I'll be home probably in about 15, 20 minutes, something like that. So, okay, bye.
Milk. No, that's not what I was looking for. That's not it. That's not it either. I need pure milk. Pure. No, no. No, no, Mr. No Good. Mr. No Good. Oh, no. This is not it. I need pure milk. No! 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 Oh. Pure milk. Drink pure
Thank you, Sean. That's a great illustration. So yeah, that we would crave God, right? That's what Peter's calling us to, that we would crave him. But it's a process, right? And it takes years sometimes to develop that craving, but that we would continue to strive for that. The amazing thing is that as we experience God, we're able to share that experience with others. That the more grace that we experience from God, the more we can be gracious to others. The more of his goodness that we experience, the more we can pass that goodness on to others. The more love that he expresses to us and we experience from him, the more we can love others. Philippians 1, verses 1 and 2. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one mind. And Philippians here, Paul is saying, if we get anything good from God, pass it on, right? And this is why we don't focus on loving others. Right? That's the tendency. We can go, okay, I need to do a better job of loving others, and so I'm going to focus on myself loving other people. That's our tendency. But Peter is saying, no. Don't focus on your behavior. Focus on Jesus. That if we focus our minds on God and experience his love, we will be able to love others better. So the focus that when we have an area that we need to fix and change and make better and make it more righteous, is that we need to focus on God. Don't focus on the sin. Don't focus on the failure. Don't even focus on the righteous things that we desire to do. May we just focus on God and allow his goodness to flow through us. Because the only way we can show grace is if we've experienced grace. The only way we can be good to others is if we've experienced goodness. The only way we can love others is if we've experienced love. We will enjoy deeper and more consistent love for each other if we develop a craving for truth and regularly highlight the expressions of God's goodness, grace, and love in our lives. All right, worship team, why don't you come forward? We're going to transition into communion. And we see that, this passage about Peter instructing us on loving each other well, that we would love the body of Christ, that we would love in the family. We see that expressed even in communion, right? I mean, this is a family meal. And we are brought together not just because of the meal, but because of what the meal represents, right? We're brought together because of Christ. It's his family. He's the one that's created this. He's the one that's opened the opportunity for this. And so we are brought together at this table to get today because of what Christ has done in our lives individually. And so may we take it together as a family. May we recognize the beauty that surrounds us. May we be challenged maybe by the lack of our focus on the eternal this morning. And that as we take these elements today, that we would be, just once again encouraged to lift our eyes off of this world and place our focus firmly on Jesus.